I love that analogy. The life we're leading now being like trying to do contortion in your living room, because I think we are all trying to bend over backwards while we're keeping a lot of things up in the air.
When Circus Harmony began to plan its new show, its leaders didn't have to search too hard for the theme.
And I guess that's a metaphor for 2020, contortion in your living room.
Circus is always an analogy for life, but now more than ever.
But when we teach tightrope walking, we teach you that if you're losing your balance, you don't stay in one place and fight it, you take your next step forward.
I'm Sarah Fensky. This is St. Louis on the Air. The nonprofit troops return to the virtual limelight this Saturday is titled The Balancing Act, Walking the Pandemic Tightrope. And that's something its young members have grown adept at doing in these past few months. Need proof? Well, let's listen in as two performers in the show tell us about their contortion routines. Lila Lawless is a 9-year-old contortionist in South St. Louis, and she and fellow contortionist Sarah Kuhlman combine their flexible forces in a really cool way. Here's Lila explaining how they partnered on their piece for the October 10th event.
We're both contortionists, and Jessica was asking everybody what they wanted to do for the balancing act. And me and Sarah both said contortion, so we just combined and did an act together with Rosa. We rehearsed a couple of times on Zoom, and then I went off and I recorded the video of the act, and then I sent it to Sarah, and she watched the video on one screen and tried to get in sync with it while recording on another screen.
Now, Lila Lawless mentioned Rosa, who's the girls' contortion coach. Here's what 16-year-old Sarah Kuhlman had to say about her.
Probably my favorite part about contortion is my contortion teacher, Rosa. She is the nicest person, and I swear she's magical. I love contortion because it's just so different, and it allows me to do some really crazy things. And it's hard work, too. It's a little bit scary at first, for sure, but as long as you know how to fall, it'll be okay.
And that is Sarah Kuhlman. Now, we asked her partner in this act, Lila Lawless, how Lila got into contortion in the first place. And Lila told us that one of her gymnastics coaches a while back noticed that she was naturally flexible.
He was telling me a story about this contortionist, and one of the tricks was the chin stand, and he was trying to explain it. So I tried it, and I didn't get very far, but I was really interested in it. So at home, I worked on it a lot, and eventually I got the chin stand. And so the next day I was at hip hop at gymnastics, and they were like, "What do you want to do for this dance?" And I was like, "We can do this trick," because I had just learned it and I was super excited. Then I kept doing contortion stuff all around the house, and my mom got kind of scared, so she took me to City Museum to do a contortion class. She thought I was going to hurt myself.
And again, that's Lila Lawless. And the way that her fellow Circus Harmony contortionist, Sarah Kuhlman of Ladue, described her favorite contortion trick to us, it sounded like the kind of activity where you really have to know what you're doing. Here's how Sarah described the triple fold to our producer the other day.
Imagine like kneeling on the ground, and you spread your knees maybe to a little bit like wider than your hips. And then you basically like bend back and you grab your ankles with your hands and you manage to like pull your body through your legs. This is difficult to explain, but you pull your body through your legs until your chin is like on the ground between your two calves.
You have to see these videos to believe it. Now, Lila Lawless told us that the strength and focus required for tricks like that have been helpful to her during this hard year and along with continuing Circus Harmony classes.
Especially with some of the in-person classes, since we're supposed to be social distancing and we can't really see anybody, it helps to just be in the same place as people at circus. And it also really gives me another thing to think about. Instead of thinking about all the horrible things that are going on this year, I can just think about the fun things that happen in circus and work on some of the fun skills and things like that.
That's Lila Lawless. Now, we asked Sarah Kuhlman if she sees parallels between contortion and life in 2020. And here is what she told us.
Well, first of all, contortion takes a lot of practice, and it's hard, and life is hard. And also, it takes discipline. for sure, which I see in my life. I think that's been a good tool for me, but also just doing contortion in your living room is challenging. And I guess that's a metaphor for 2020, contortion in your living room. I don't know. The canes are pretty tall, and there's like only one room in my house where we don't have like a ceiling fan or a light hanging from the ceiling, and where we have tall enough ceilings for canes. So I'm doing handstands in my living room, and we had to like move the couch and our desk.
And that's Sarah Kuhlman, a 16-year-old performer with Circus Harmony. And here's one takeaway from that. Life is hard and challenging. It takes discipline, and we're all just making do, often in our very own living room. And joining us today with more about Circus Harmony's The Balancing Act is Executive Director Jessica Hentoff. So, Jessica, welcome.
Thank you. I love that analogy about it being the life we're leading now, being like trying to do contortion in your living room, because I think we are all trying to bend over backwards while we're keeping a lot of things up in the air.
Yeah, that does seem like the case for everybody these days. And I know for Circus Harmony, you guys are doing the best you can in this moment. People are doing things remotely that they never thought about doing before. What made you decide to go ahead with a virtual show this particular month?
Well, as soon as we went into lockdown on March 16th, we instantly put everything online, and we're doing quarantine training classes. And we are a very performance-focused circus school. If you see us at City Museum, which is our usual home ring, last year we put on over 740 shows between our students and our teaching artists.
Wow.
So it was just natural to be, okay, well, let's set a goal. Let's focus on creating a show.
And you mentioned, or I believe Lila mentioned, that there have been some in-person practices, but it sounds like you've been doing those not by default. You've been finding ways to do them when need be.
Well, we waited a while. We really have been watching the science on this, and we consult with other circus schools around the world, actually. So while most of our classes are on Zoom, and we can bring the big top under your rooftop anywhere, we have a few classes happening now, masked, outside, and socially distanced, that are in person, and you can find out about them on our website at circusharmony.org. In particular, we have an open juggling club and a unicycle club that people can come to.
So there's some options there. People who are even just getting involved, you can learn how to do these things from your living room.
Absolutely.
Now, I know that some of these kids in Circus Harmony, they do come from tough backgrounds. Has that made things complicated to try to do these tricks when you don't necessarily have a huge suburban home, you don't necessarily have reliable internet?
That's been the real problem, is the access in terms of internet and even devices. We've had families where they don't have a device at home until mom gets home from work. And so we had to structure our classes to make sure that everybody who wanted to and could participate.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're also joined today. We have a second guest. That's Kyron Walton. He started in Circus Harmony at age 8, and today he's in circus school in Montreal. So, Kyron, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I understand you're now doing some teaching for Circus Harmony. How do you teach some of these skills remotely? Does that make things significantly harder when you can't just reach out and touch someone?
It definitely makes things significantly harder. Circus is a very hands-on thing, so normally it's just easier to step in and just hold somebody and let them know that they're safe and that you can just spot them for a skill so they don't get hurt. But when you take these classes to Zoom, it's quite different. And with everything going on in life, this was quite a challenge for me during the summer, which I have finally adapted to. But I've been teaching them handstands over the summer since around middle of June. And just getting used to teaching somebody how to be on their hands upside down and give them the exercises they need so they don't get hurt. It's a little different, but over the time, they definitely have gotten stronger and more skills over these past 3 to 4 months. So I am enjoying it.
Does it take some things just off the table, something where they're going to need a spotter? It's just too dangerous to attempt in your living room without you there.
Certainly with handstands, but luckily, like handstands, it may seem complex to a person that's not in circus, but a lot of it just takes being next to a wall getting on the handstand, being in the handstand next to the wall and just holding it and just strengthening your muscles. So we can, with some of the levels that they're at, we can improve a lot of our stuff with just getting better at the basics of the handstands rather than doing like crazy complex skills, you know.
Mm-hmm. Jessica, hearing Chiron describe how this can be done, like this is something where you don't have to be in person. People can work on the skill up against the wall. Are you surprised by what people have been able to make work in this remote format? At
first I was surprised that new people could learn skills and also that our advanced students were still progressing. And one of our online classes is actually Handstands 101. So if you've always wanted to learn, this is the chance. I also do want to say something, since you started with Lila and Sarah talking about contortion. I would like to point out that Chiron was our most flexible male student, and I clearly remember him as a young man, as a young boy, saying, I don't want to do that trick where my butt touches my head. But he did that and a lot more.
So, Chiron, you kind of had to be coaxed into some contortion. Is Jessica recalling that right?
Yes, I was around 11, 12, and similar to that skill that Sarah was just talking about. Mm-hmm. Instead, I was, let's say you're laying on your stomach and your feet just go, you just arch your legs over, and then you push your legs straight to where your butt is basically sitting on top of your head. And it took a lot of convincing for me to be able to do it, because I was just like, I don't know why I'm doing this, but over time I grew. I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool, and not many people can do this, so I should take advantage of it.
And you have taken advantage of it. You're now in circus school. How has that been affected by the pandemic? Are you in person for that?
For what? Sorry, could you repeat yourself again?
For your school in Montreal, where you're studying the circus arts.
Yeah, so luckily I've been able to, we've all been able to train. Training is a little bit different. We only go in about 3 hours a day, and we have masks at all times, and we have our specialty, which mine is hand-to-hand. That's a discipline where I'm doing handstands on a person and they're throwing me around and I'm doing flips and stuff. And we'll have another class that's like acting or dance or like working out, something related towards that. So it's been great. We only have 3 hours, but it's better than nothing, and I'm happy that I'm still able to advance in the things that I like to do.
Is it hard to stay focused when normal performance opportunities are no longer on the table?
Well, I would say it's for me, there's always so much going on in life, so I always maintain my focus regardless of what's happening. So for me, I would say I don't have a problem with that. Performing, I love performing, but right now I'm in school, so I've already performed, but I'm in school to get better. And right now I'm kind of more so focusing on my technical abilities. So by the time I graduate, then all the performance is gonna be there. So I feel like I have a little more time. So it's something I'm not necessarily stressing out about.
You're finding the silver lining. And I know, Chiron, you have a piece in The Balancing Act. This is the virtual show that is this Saturday. There's a sort of preview to that you can see on our website. That's stlpublicradio.org if people want to check out what you're doing in that. Jessica, bigger picture, you have said that this is a very personal show. How so?
Because in addition to them demonstrating how they're keeping their balance through circus arts, they all talk about what their pandemic perspective is. And some of them are talking about the pandemic itself. Some of them are talking about the presidential election, the Black Lives Matter movement. And you get a very personal look. You know, when you're in all these Zoom meetings, you look into someone's house and you see what's on the wall and you see what animals are there or children. Now you're seeing even deeper. And so you'll see in the show Lila, who is a young black girl, is talking about what it's like to turn on the TV and seeing a black person getting killed. Mm-hmm. That's reality now. So it is definitely an exciting, wonderful circus show, but it also talks about the impact of everything that's going on now, because these young people are the ones who are going to be most affected by what happens. And we're all walking this pandemic tightrope. But when we teach tightrope walking, we teach you that if you're losing your balance, you don't stay in one place and fight it. You take your next step forward. And that's how you regain your balance. And that's what's shown in this upcoming online show. So you hear how it's kind of hard for them to explain the triple fold and some of the other tricks. If people tune in, they have to register for tickets. It's free, but they need to register for tickets at circusharmony.org. but then they can see all these things. And Kyron shows some of the tricks that he's working on right now in terms of hand balancing and an aerial act. And the show has a whole family doing unicycle together, and it talks about the pandemic positives as well.
So, Kyron, hearing you express how you're getting through this, you just seem to have such a good attitude and such a good spirit towards this pandemic. I'm wondering if learning one sort of balance, the balance that you have to do in your circus work, has helped you find balance mentally and emotionally.
I would say most definitely. I feel like the reason I've been in circus all this time, I've been in circus for 11 years now, and the reason I'm able to stay so well balanced is because I have circus. It helps me mentally and physically, and that's why I'm always cherishing it. That's why it's like stayed such a big part of my life throughout all of this time. Mm-hmm. So I would say it is something that's even been a lot more useful with especially the pandemic and stuff going on right now. But I'm happy I've had enough practice before to where now I'm okay and I don't feel too overwhelmed with everything that's going on in the world right now.
You were ready for this moment.
We say circus teaches the art of life, and exactly what we teach is what's needed to get through this unbalanced time. Focus, strength, flexibility, and supporting each other.
Well, I know that Kyron actually has to run to class. This is an unusual situation, but it's unusual to get a circus performer to come on our show. So, Kyron Moulton, I want to thank you so much for joining us today and sharing a bit about your life these days.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
And I do want to encourage people to check out some of Kyron's amazing moves. And also, as he opens up a bit on a personal level, you can see that little preview at stlpublicradio.org. We've got it there on our website. It's also on the Circus Harmony website. And Jessica, tell us, what are some of the other highlights of this show that's going to be on Saturday evening?
There's that whole family that rides a unicycle together, a mother, father, and 3 sons. Another one of our alumni is Claire Walenda, and she actually talks about how she's walking the pandemic tightrope while literally walking on a tightrope. We have aerial acts, juggling acts, and we were able to get guest choreographers. So the juggling act was choreographed by Sereno Aguilar Izzo, an amazing juggler who was in Mexico. And in that act, it's like 9 Zoom boxes, a la the Brady Bunch, but they juggle together. And that's really interesting. And then we have some acts that take up the whole screen. There's dance, there's acrobatics. It's a really wonderful circus show, very heartwarming circus show, and circus is all about joy and triumph, and we show that you can have those emotions, you can have those feelings while you're going through everything that people are going through. And we hope after watching it, people will gain some insight, some pandemic perspective that they might not have thought of before, like some of these pandemic positives, and also that they'll maybe sign up for circus classes or book an online or outside socially distanced show. Kyron's partner, the one who he does the handstands on and who throws him around and catches him, was also here this summer and spent a lot of time with his sister. And they do a beautiful partner acrobatic act and talk about how because of the pandemic, they got to spend this time together.
So there is some hope in here. There is some silver linings that people have found for this, and you can learn all about it by joining for the Balancing Act. That, again, is this Saturday, and you can find out more information about that on circusharmony.org or on our website, stlpublicradio.org. And Jessica Hentoff, Executive Director of Circus Harmony, I want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's always such a pleasure.
Is listening to an episode of St. Louis on the Air part of your daily routine? If so, suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help new people discover our show. Thank you.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, saluting Earth Day on April 22nd with an ongoing commitment to help offset carbon emissions with sustainable harvesting of Missouri forests. Details at choosewood.com.